What's going on, advocates? Welcome back to another edition of the Black Mental Health Podcast. I'm your host, Reg. Joined today with me is a special guest. Been putting in some work, man. I went once I got to look at your biography and all of the things you're doing. I'm like, oh, she moving around out here doing her thing. So I give people the opportunity to introduce themselves because I don't want to miss a credential, and I want like you to be let the listeners know why they should be listening in. So please introduce yourself to the people.
Oh, awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Danika Nester. Hailing originally from Haiti, raised in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, matured in Atlanta, gained additional knowledge in DC, but we back in Atlanta again. Right. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I currently am employed at Emory Healthcare. The hospital specifically is long-term acute care hospital. I also am a part-time therapist. I kind of accidentally fell into that role, but I've been doing it for some time now. I'm also a student. I'm a PhD student, 30-year PhD student at Howard University, School of Social Work. I PhD in social work, specifically looking at mental health in Black males.
And they can probably hear how we got connected to some of those different things.
Exactly. Do I say that? Like, do I tell the people how we met, or?
No, because I learned that it was frowned upon. Like, but later I learned because it's supposed to be like a safe space, but they don't allow I didn't learn that till later though. It's supposed to be so they don't allow people to come in the group unannounced without knowing that they're just there for like school. Like they have a specific group related to that. You get what I mean?
I didn't know that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so I learned that later too.
Oh, okay. I mean, we don't necessarily have to say what it is, but right. I do think it wasn't on accident.
By far. Sure.
Yeah, it was definitely purposeful.
Yes. So I
wasn't expecting that at all. So,
No, I didn't know either. So that's why it was information for me to know. So we don't have to put the organization on, but we did meet in a group, and we just connected. And then you told me some of the things that you had going on, and I was like, "Oh, I'm down."
Before though, I knew really? Before, so I was doing background work. So I'm real intentional. So when I was doing my research on Black males, et cetera, as I knew at some point I was going to have to collect data, right. And I have to, just kind of be proactive. Like, okay, where am I going to find Black males that work in this realm that do this kind of work? And so I was on Black Men Heal. I saw your story, right. Heard about, the things that you were doing, and I remembered your name, but I've never, I didn't really follow through. Right. And right. I'm not on Instagram. So like, it's very difficult for me to get in contact with a lot of people. So when I had the assignment and I joined the group, I was like, and I waited to the end. Waited to the end because I was like, that's gotta be him. Like, right. I went on mute. I'm like, talk to my mom. I was like, Mom, I think that's him. She's like, right. Just ask him. I was like, okay. And I'm so glad that I did, because as soon as I did, he's like, yeah, that's me. I was like, yes, score. Because I have no idea how else I would be able to get in contact with you, because I'm just not on social media platforms like that. So I was like, perfect. Yeah.
Is that a conscious choice why you made that decision not to be on social media platforms?
Yes, it was. So back in 2019, like right before the pandemic, it was 2020, I feel like, right before the pandemic, I had just decided to get off of Instagram for Lent. So, for Lent, you sacrifice something for 40 days. And I'm like, I'm just going to give up Instagram. And I did it for a while. And I mean, at the same time, I just was kind of going through things as well. This is pre-pandemic. So school, being in the PhD program can be really rough, and just personal relationship issues. And so I was just like, let me just get off, because it's not helping. And then I also needed something to sacrifice for Lent. So I was just like, this is a perfect opportunity. I'll just stay off for 40 days. And then 40 days, I was just like, you know what? Let me just stay off to the end of the semester. And then it went further and further. And the longer and longer that I stayed off, the better I felt. And then I ended up watching the Social Media Dilemma.
Yes, I just watched that too. Yeah, this year.
It messed me up, Reginald. Messed up. I was like, you mean to tell me that the creators of all of this won't even allow their kids to be on it? I think that's when switch for me, where I'm just like, all right, I don't need to be on there either. It's almost like, if you won't eat it, why are you feeding it to me?
Right.
That's how I took it. So I was just like, nah, I'm good. I am on Facebook, and people ask me all the time, well, what's the difference from Facebook and Instagram? And I just feel like Facebook is just a little bit more controlled. Everybody on Facebook I've known for years. Like, everybody that's on my Facebook are like high school friends. And I rather enjoy seeing them grow up in that aspect, because I feel like people kind of keep it a little cuter on Facebook as opposed to Instagram. And it's just so much content on Instagram. It was just too much. It's distracting. I feel like I got way more work done being off of Instagram. And I was able to it forced me to just do other things as well. So first thing I'm not doing is going on the gram. I'm like, okay, let me find something else to do with my time.
I struggle with it. I just sent you a friend request on Facebook, by the way, too, just like doing my research.
Right, cool.
That's how I build. You're right. I got 300 friends. I had like the limit. I think it was like either 3,000 or 5,000. I'm like, I don't even talk to some of these people. So I honestly shift in and out with like social media, where if I ain't talked to you in a year, or maybe like, I'm like, we're probably like outgrown that relationship or whatever the case may be. So I'll delete it and make room for the new people who I want to support, want to like that, deepen in the connection. And I think that was the initial point of like social media, to kind of deepen the connection with family members that you didn't have, and all of those different things. And I'm like, we lost the source of it. And like you said, I watched the show earlier, or the movie, there's a documentary earlier this year, and I'm like, they said something along the lines of like, you are the consumer, like we are the things that's being sold. And I'm like, that is so true. But then I struggle with that, because I got a podcast to promote too. Like, I got like, different things that I got to do.
I know. I mean, with me in the beginning stages of my therapy business, I know I have to get on social media to a certain extent, but then I'm like, I don't necessarily have to do it. So I'm just trying to figure out ways that I can pay somebody to do it. I also learned that you can like pre-post things where you don't have to necessarily be on there. So there's ways that I feel like you can still be on there, but don't necessarily get too engulfed in it. So I'm trying to just find healthier habits to actually utilize it. Cause I mean, it's free marketing. I get it. You can't, it doesn't hurt. Can't beat that. But it's a slippery slope.
No, it is. It really is. And you really do gotta like watch how you like, and I feel like it's going, how they have like, and I don't know if they got it now, you'll be able to speak to it probably more efficiently than me, but they have like rehab for addicts. And I think we're really gonna see that like uptick.
Oh, for social media?
Yes.
Facts.
Yeah, we're gonna see that uptick in the future, because you really don't know what to do. I think the phantom vibe, my phone is right here. Like we are addicted to these different mediums that we don't even realize that we're addicted to them
until you stop.
Yeah.
And like, honestly, like I've tried to go back and like something won't let me. And it's very weird. I talked to my therapist about it. I'm just like, I don't want to do it. I think I have this fear that if I do it, all of the progress that I make, I don't want to regress, because I'm so much happier being off of Instagram. I feel like.
No, and it's probably true, because I look at, and then again with me being in it sometimes, where I'd be like, well, why is this person not on here? Like, you would kind of like depend on it to keep up to date with certain people, where I know kind of some family members that's in the same city in Philadelphia with me, that could call me or that could do certain things, but they rather like, oh no, I seen you just posted this, I seen you just did this, I seen so right. That they don't have the real true connection, where it's like, yo, you could have talked to me. You don't gotta watch the version that I'm putting out there.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, but
it's crazy.
You said something earlier that I wanted to go back to, where you said you kind of fell into this career path. How did that happen? What did you mean by like that?
I fell into therapy. Okay, I mean, yeah, let's get into it. So I guess this would be the first time I'm like saying this publicly, but I think it's important, because I think the message from what I learned from it is like, what's for you will always be for you.
That's a fact.
So
it keep coming my way. I'll tell you that. I keep,
and it's like, can't nobody take it from you. It's just like, when it's supposed to happen, it's gonna happen. It may not necessarily happen like how you want it to look like, but it's just like, if you're listening, you paying attention to God, and you're gonna get what it is that you're supposed to get. So, I mean, I've been toying with the idea of private practice for some time. And I'm very intentional. So I didn't think that I wasn't confident enough and didn't think that I had the skills enough or the experience, because I'm still relatively young, that I could actually be of help to someone else. And then for me, I feel like, I got to get my ish in order first and make sure I'm good before I could ever give anybody else advice. So just like, I'm not up to par. Like, who am I to tell somebody else what to do? So that was number one. That was one thing that kind of stopped me from starting. Secondly, I had to get my licensure. So I didn't have that yet. I took it the first time, I failed it. Second time, I passed. You know what I'm saying? Pick yourself up, try again, right? So, and then the third barrier as well was just really navigating what kind of therapist I would want to be. I just really didn't really capture it. I just didn't want to just kind of just dive into it without being more methodical about it. So I had a mentor, coworker, colleague who already has her private practice, and she asked me to join on with her. Her business was booming. She needed some additional help, and I was able to work up under her. And okay, this will give me an opportunity to be able to kind of build that skill set, sharpen up my tools a little bit, and see if I really have skin in the game to be able to do this and for it to work. So I started off slowly, had one client with her, and we just had I guess difference of opinions in regards to how we were working together. I was just under the impression that I would be assisting, not necessarily growing the business with her, where she was looking for an actual partner. And I was just like, I was honest with her. I was just like, I don't have that kind of bandwidth to like promote your business, etc. I mean, I have time that I could be able to plug in a couple of people that I see for 60 minutes, but putting in that work and posting on Instagram and marketing this particular business, I can't promise you that. So we just came to the understanding that it was costing her more money to keep me on payroll. So she let me go. But I did have that one client that I was working with, and I was in the thick of work with her, and I didn't want to lose that opportunity. So I agreed to still work with her and keep her on. And I went ahead and took my licensure exam, passed it. And I had that one client for some time. She was just my one client. I meet with her sporadically. My profile was still on psychologytoday.com. It was still up. It still said accepting new clients. And then I went from having her as a client to multiple people calling me. It was like happened in a span of like days to weeks. People like, hey, I need a therapist. Hey, I need a therapist. Hey, I need a therapist. So I'm like, okay. Okay, cool. So, I make sure that I consult with them. I'm like, hey, listen, I'll meet with you for free and you let me know if we'll be a good fit. And like, they kept coming back, Reginald. So I'm just like, oh, okay. So this is an actual business. We're doing something here.
Right.
Before you know it, like I went from having one client that I had initially under my mentor in her private practice to now having my own, and I'm at 20.
How was what is the word and phrasing that I'm looking at? Like, what was the transitional moment for you with the licensure part? Because I don't think a lot of therapists speak to that point of like, hey, that can really deter you from, like, it can dictate your career path if you don't get that licensure.
It can.
Talk more to that experience.
I mean, social workers that are watching this, like, that should be the ultimate goal. Like, there isn't anything that you, let me not say that you can, but the way that the field is changing, LCSWs are definitely the way to go. For flexibility, for salary, for variety, just in regards to like in the field work and what you want to do, having an LCSW is so paramount. Like, but taking the test is not easy. So I do know a lot of people do get discouraged. For the people that are watching, if you are social workers, I recommend the Therapist Development Center. So that's TD, the Therapist Development Center.com. An amazing program. And I honestly feel like I would have passed the LCSW the first time around. I was just rushing and I didn't take enough time to actually study. I opened up the book in like 2 weeks and I failed it literally by 3 points. So that's a testament to this program. It's a real dope program. But Failing the licensure definitely isn't easy. I do recommend people just continue to try because getting that licensure, like I said before, is so paramount. So I don't think I remember your question. What was your question?
No, you did. You did answer it.
Okay.
I like to ask that. I think we're around the same age, right? So
Yeah.
I learned with myself, and we'll get into the birthday you're celebrating and some of the things we talked about off air. But I learned with myself that this is not in a good way. This is not who I wanted to be when I got older. You know how you had this career path set for yourself when you're younger, but I'm happy of where I'm at because it feels like this is where I'm supposed to be. Was this where you're at now, where you thought you were going to be when you were younger, when you was trying to develop, like, all right, this is what I want to do in the world?
Man, I still trying to figure out what I'm trying to do. I think I'm in the vicinity. I don't have an actual concrete thing. I'm getting there because mental health is definitely my niche. And I'm really, really passionate about Black male mental health. So I think I'm inching towards that. But I mean, I like to keep my options open. So I'm like tapping into as much as possible because I'm just a nerd and I like to learn. But when I was younger, I wanted to be a pediatrician. Like that's what I wanted to do. And I was just like, I realized now that I'm older that I can't deal with children. It's just not my cup of tea. It's not my cup of tea. I just can't. I just don't. I could if I had more like room to help. I feel like there's so many like steps you have to take to help a minor that it almost is not helpful. I got to go through parents. You know, you working in the government, you got to go through these laws and like things. If you make one wrong move, your licensure gets snatched from you so quickly. So I don't know if I want to be able to take that kind of risk. I'm like, I'm good. It's for me, right? But I did, and I mean, interesting enough, I'm Haitian, born in Haiti. So Caribbeans, and my Caribbeans may be able to relate to this, but growing up, there's only 3 fields, maybe 4 fields that your parents would agree and be in supportive of for you to go into. You gotta be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, or a nurse. That's it. If it's not one of 4 of those, you're not an engineer, doctor, lawyer, an attorney, or a nurse, they're not rocking with that. Like, what you mean? You're not about to go to school, be anything else. That's what you do. And of course, I follow suit. So I went to FAU and started nursing school, it's a pre-nursing program. And I was in there and I hated it. I hated going to anatomy, physiology. I hated lab. I'm like, yo, this is not for me. Like, after talking to a couple of friends about it, they was like, oh, why don't you try going to the student center and the career outreach or something like that. I didn't even know what that was. One day I just decided to go. And I was just kind of talking, like my friend told me to come here and talk to somebody about my career. She's like, oh, okay, well, let's take this test. And I took the test. It said I was either supposed to be a counselor, a social worker, or in theater, which makes so much sense because I'm animated. And the other 2 fields in regards to counsel and social work were very evident in the type of person that I am. So I knew I wanted to help people. I just didn't want to be a nurse. I didn't want to help in that aspect, but I did want it to be able to have some more variety about how I wanted to help. So she told me more about social work. I called my mom. I was like, Mom, I want to be a social worker. She read me for filth. She was just like a social worker. No, social workers don't make money and da 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 da. And the wrong thing for you to do to me is to tell me I can't do something. Like, I'll prove you wrong. So I was like, man, I'll show you social workers can make money.
Right.
It's because I did the research. I wouldn't have joined it. Like, that's why I picked social work instead of counseling, because there's a difference. I didn't do LPC route. I didn't do the LMFT route. I didn't do the sociology, psychology route. I specifically chose social work, right? So I did enough research to understand the vast difference between the 2. So started doing that. I got my BSW, so my bachelor's and my master's, and now my PhD is going to be in social work. So I'm one of those unicorns that did it through and through. So can't nobody tell me about social work. So ideally, when I went in, I didn't know I wanted to be in this realm, but I didn't know that mental health was going to be my niche. I didn't know. So I was going to work in social work in some capacity, in some way, shape, or form, but I didn't know mental health was going to be my niche. I was really going into social work and going into spaces where I knew I could make money. But then I realized, like, oh, okay, I can make money and do what I like.
that I'm still carving out minds as well. Like you said, like I know I have a passion for mental health. I work, of course, with Black Men Hill. I'm doing the podcast, but I'm like, where do I fall within this realm? But I'm like, well, maybe I am in where I'm supposed to fall at with doing stuff like this and having these, like I'm right where I'm supposed to be, but I'm still feeling like because in school now doing it, and taking classes and things like that, but still trying to find the niche of where I fit into the scheme of things. Because I don't know if I necessarily want to do the one-on-one therapy, but I know it's such a vast system that needs different components where you can like find yourself in.
We need y'all. I was actually talking to a line sister about that too. I'm an AKA. So I was talking to a line sister about that, and she was asking me about what my research is and what it is that I want to do. I said I want to be able to take what I learn and apply it, but also like expand it. So I just want to start it, and it kind of like spreads to its own thing. And it does that sometimes. Like, not only do I want to be able to create more content surrounding mental health that's written by us, you know, as opposed to white people writing about Black people in our issues. I don't think there's enough African American scholars that are in the literature. There's a lot of people
I want to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there doing the grassroots, you know, the footwork, you know what I mean? But what you read about us, what other people read about us, the data that's collected on us, I feel like that needs to be by us. I want to be the boots on the ground collecting the fresh data, and I want to be the one to report to the CDC about me, about us. You know what I mean? So when you're reading literature about Black people, like when you read stats, the people that collect the stats, I don't want it to be a group of white people. I want Black people collected these stats, because because once you collect the stats and you know you do your research, it looks different once you type it out. How you write it,
how you process it.
How you write it is very important, and how you do it. Because for one person, this may look like a negative, but for me, it's actually a positive. Even though it's still low, it's a lot more than it used to be. Like, for instance, like the whole myth that Black men are not in their children's lives. It depends on how you're looking at it, right? It's just like, actually, that's not true. You know what I'm saying? You have somebody else that will write the same article and be like, in fact, the data shows that Black men are actually in their children's lives. But somebody else will write and be like, no, that's not what the data says. So how the data is interpreted is really important. So utilizing that mental health aspect to make sure that the content that's being distributed out about us is written about us. So having more Black male scholars in literature. Then you also have to have practitioners, because I can't tell you, like, I want to connect so many Black males to therapists, and I'm like, it's only so much I can do. When I'm like reaching for my own resources, I'm like, yo, I got a client and I feel like this is beyond my scope because I'm not a Black male and I want to be able to help him. Where can I connect him? Who should I call? I'm scrambling. I'm like, man. So it's not enough of Black male practitioners. But then I also feel like we can also make the field a lot more marketable. That's another thing that's missing, because our field is a lot of women in the mental health field. There's a lot of women social workers. There's a lot of women in, you know, LPCs and licensed marriage and family therapists. Not a lot of Black males. And I understand that the field isn't presented that you can make money, but I think we need to talk more about that. Like, yeah, ideally I'm giving a service, and the thought is that, oh, because you're providing this service, like, it's not about the money, because you're doing something, you know, out of the kindness of your heart. That's kind of what it appears to be. But no, you still gotta cash in, you know what I mean? Because time spent, you know what I'm saying, that's your energy and etc. Like, it's still time spent. So making this field more marketable, so that you do have, when people go to school, they're not just getting MBAs. Black males are not just getting MBAs. They're just not going into the fields that quote unquote make the most money, but understanding that you could also be a social worker and still make the same amount.
Yeah, no, you dropped a lot of jewels in there. Hopefully I can go back and grab some of them because it again, go back to the one thing that's poking out a lot is how research could be racist. And I'm thinking I was able to collect data like at my previous job and see how it could be interpreted and why some of the barriers that prevent people from like participating in the research and not knowing, and you just coming to take data for your own benefits, and it doesn't reciprocate into the community. So you actually put a bug in my ear just now, like long term, of like considering that as being a path of like I want to make an impact in that way too. Because you look, even when I'm in school now, you look at all of the uh Siegfried and Freud and all the people that's the foundation of mental health. They're not people of color when it comes to that, but we have to go off of that data because that's the only research that we have that we
don't
know
include us at all. It don't include us. My biggest beef is Erickson, because I have like this love and hate relationship with that particular theory, because I'm like, the Erickson stages is about the age. So it's just like Erickson says, like when from 0 to 1, the infant stage, you're supposed to be successful in
I
this.
actually just did that class.
Yes. So the Erickson stages. Okay. So Erickson stages it gives you order, right? And it's just like if you successfully pass these stages, ultimately what he's saying is that you're going to be a healthy, you're going to be a healthy adult. And if there's a part of the stage that you miss, you may struggle in your adulthood. And later on, right? So for instance, one of the stages is like school age, when autonomy versus shame and doubt. So what that says is like if a child during this period of time, it's very important for you to give a toddler autonomy. So instead of you dressing them, thank you.
I
Thank
got you.
you.
This is what we doing here.
Yes. So autonomy versus shame, right? So instead of like, for instance, if your child is between 1.5 years old and 3 years old, they're starting to eat on their own, right? They're starting to feed themselves. So you have some parents that'll do it for them. Just do it for them, do it for them, do it for them. Where no, you're supposed to let them do it on their own. Give them the autonomy to try to like get these skills by themselves. Even if they drop the food on the floor, they make a mess, let them do it. Because when they get to the next stage, you got purpose, right? Initiative versus guilt. So when they start going to school and they're in daycare, you want them to be able to take initiative on their own. They don't have to wait for somebody to tell them to do something because they can take initiative. But let's say, for instance, they failed and a parent was to just keep spoon feeding them and do everything for them between 1 and 3 years old and not like, push them to do stuff on their own. When they start daycare around 3 and 5 years old, they're going to feel guilty. It's like, oh, I don't want to do it by myself. It's okay. Can you do it for me? And then you go into the next stage about competency. And it's just like, now you feel inferior. You're in school and you don't feel like you can do anything. You kind of feel like, I don't think I'm smart enough. I don't think I can do X, Y, and Z. And it just kind of trickles down the line. But if you're successful in it, by the time you get to stage 3, you take an initiative. By the time you get to stage 4, you're getting into that industry, you having that competency. By the time you get to stage 5, you kind of have an identity, you know yourself. Intimacy, you're healthy in your intimacy. And then generativity is when you start getting a little older. That's when you start, cultivate, like kind of just progressing in life, as opposed to stagnation, where you have people between 45 and 60 feel like they stuck. It's like, and then by the time you get old, 65 and older, and this is what happens in my job because I work at a hospital. So a lot of my patient client population is 65 and up. You have a lot of people that look differently. You can tell who lived a good life and be like, I regret nothing. I'm ready to go. But then you have people who be like, you know what? I wish I would have did this. I wish I would have did that. They're so depressed and they have despair. So Erickson stages, to a degree, is proven and evidence-based and is true. But Black people don't go through those stages in that order. We grow up way too fast. We don't go through those stages in that particular order. Autonomy versus shame is just like up until 3 years old. We're doing as children, like not even that the industry versus inferiority, like taking that initiative and having competency. My mama had me in the kitchen when I was like 4 years old, cleaning meat.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not about to, my mom was like, no, you're not about to just sit here and just like watch TV all day. Come in the kitchen, make sure you work and do this, that, and the third. Like, I was hands-on very early on. That the identity versus role confusion, they say that doesn't happen until your adolescence. I mean, Black people develop a lot faster. Like that as an adolescent, like I started my cycle when I was 10.
Mm.
I'm 10 years old.
Right.
And Erickson said that I'm not supposed to do that till I'm 14.
Right.
So I'm already trying to identify who I am because I'm walking into that stage as a woman.
Right.
So
right.
like it's so what you're saying, like the theorists, Sigmund Freud, Erickson, all of them are white, and they definitely come from a European space, but it does not necessarily include our experience. Our experience is different. We grew up way too fast. Erickson's stage is real slow. That's a privilege. Ooh. To be able to go in that order. That's a privilege to go in that order.
So what we talking? You get me excited, man, because I'm thinking about, like, my North Star is always Nobel Peace Prize. Like that's my ultimate goal. That's my championship is Nobel Peace Prize. And I know the amount of impact and amount of like paradigm shifting things you have to do. Of course, it's probably like a networking thing, of course, or whatever the case may be. But for the most part, you would have to make an impact. And I feel like what you're just saying now is something we can literally like, or the question and the statement that I'm making, and we can literally kind of impact the mental health field in a certain capacity. But the question is how can we make research unracist now? Like, what can we do as like new age mental health professionals? Like, what are some of the things you think we could do to kind of change some of these things?
We gotta pump it out. We gotta pump it out. We gotta get in their faces. Like, I can't tell you the countless of conferences that I intentionally send abstracts to so that I can actually present that. Because I want to get in their face. Like, I want to get in their face where I'm just like, no. I know this is what they told you, but here's what's really going on. And conferences, panelists, like, we got to pump out the information, not just social media. It can't just be a clip, because the people that actually, like, grant writers, government, state funding, all of those things that are funding some of the programs that affect us, they utilize research and data that come from researchers like me, right? Or like us. So it's just like, if you go, if like needs assessments, right? If you're doing a needs assessment, you go in there and be like, this community needs help. I can go in there with my Black eyes and I'll be able to identify what they need, and I can get more money for this community based on how someone else go in that community and be like, yeah, they need a couple of dollars here and there. And when they're writing the grant, it looks different. So it's really just about like pumping out the information, being real intentional about writing. The more we write, the more they hear from us, the better. I don't think we do enough writing. In this social media age, it's a lot easier to like start a blog. It's a lot easier, of course, to start the podcast, which is great. It's great, but there's this missing piece there.
It's not the only medium.
It's not the only way. Yeah.
Because like you said,
they're not going on YouTube. They're not going on YouTube to do grant writing. You know what I'm saying? They go into those peer review articles on Google Scholar to figure out, okay, cool, this is what the data says. You know what I'm saying? You got to go through the steps. You got to break it down, do the analysis. It's a lot that goes into it. And I feel like there's not enough Black scholars. I'm writing my dissertation and I'm like, I intentionally make sure I Google the name of the authors, and you got Asians, Indians, you got people from the UK, and I'm over here reading about Black men mental health. And granted, like, you have some scholars that are African American that you read about. For instance, one of my favorite one is Michael Lindsay, Dr. Michael Lindsay. He's now the dean of NYU School of Social Work, but he does great work about suicide. He talks all about suicide in Black males and how that's been increasing. So I like to follow his work. So what I do is I follow Dr. Lindsay and I try to see who he writes with. I'm like, oh, okay, he writes with these people. So then I started to connect the dots. Yeah.
No, that you're so right. Because like you said, I do the podcast because I know that's where we at. That's where our people are at. But also,
it reaches more people.
Yep. But also, when I turn this off, this calendar is filled with meetings at my school and going into different spaces, because we need to be and shake up the room a little bit, because most of the time I'm the only Black male in a room full of like either majority white people or white women, and especially being in this field, because there's not a lot of representation when it comes to like our community, and it's even them talking about what we need, and it's like you need to have some representation of us. I'll say that.
Everywhere. Every little place you go. So I think that's where my niches sometimes is that I always find a gap. I'm gonna find the gap and I'm like, okay, cool. It's enough for y'all over here, but I'm gonna go over here and see what they talking about. Because this is also important too. Like, we can't have them over here writing grants about us and they don't even know what we actually need in the community. You writing grants trying to get us COVID tests, but we over here need insurance. So we can go to the hospital and get the help that we need. We don't need no free COVID tests in the community. No, help us apply us for Medicaid. We need Medicaid. You know what I'm saying? It's a bigger picture. Like, we think so, like, if you don't have the data, the help that we get in the community is so small. Because I'm like, once I take the free COVID test and I find out I got COVID, I ain't got insurance.
Right. No, you're right. You are so right. And I think, and as I'm learning, because I had the fortune and pleasure of being, without naming too many, I had the fortune and pleasure, I'll say Blackman Hill, being a part of Blackman Hill, which everyone knows that listens to the podcast, but being a part of another organization where the numbers, Blackman Hill is producing way more numbers and getting less funding, and they're getting all the funding, but don't have to produce the numbers, where they were using language like 100% of participants were reaching their goal, but won't say it's only one participant. You get what I mean? Like,
boom, language. That's exactly what I'm saying. And that's what I mean. The way that you manipulate the information is important. And it's not enough of us to be able to do that. So white people know exactly what to say to get the money that they need. And it's just like, we need to do the same thing. We got to play that game. And then if I can get the money on the back end, then I can shoot it to organizations like you and Black Men Heal and everybody else that's actually doing the work, right? But not enough people is taking the time to do what I do, which takes a lot of work to read. Like, you got to literally go out, research, take the data, analyze it, type it in, and like, you do all of that. That can take like 6 months only to write maybe a 3-page grant, which will help you get maybe like over $100,000 that can help your community, if more than that.
Wow. You broke that down, and mind you, I just learned that within the last year or two, because that's literally, it took me, again, I did the needs assessment, I took all the trainings, I took all that stuff, and I was like, I see how this stuff work now. Like, now what do you do with it now that you know about it? And it's what you said, is like, do I got the 6 months to take out now to read about this and do all that? Still trying to, going back to what we was talking about earlier, figuring out that niche of like, I know where the needs is at, but I don't know where this is my need right here. Like, telling them like, hey, this is what happened. And like, y'all need to, this is the gap right here that's missing. We need to fill this gap up. Or do I need to be down on the ground doing the research and stopping the podcast and getting the funds ready? You get what I mean? Like, still trying to find that.
I know. Figure out which one to do. I'm a nerd, so I realize like data is my thing. So I'll be the one in the background. So I write a paper all day. But you have people like that need to be in the forefront. So you have people that excel in that space. So it's almost trying to find a team. But I just want to make sure that if there are people out there that like to do data, Black people out there that like to do data and still be able to do that work, like, they're just equally as important.
No, we need that. I need to connect you with the Black Male team, because we need that space, man, and having that research and that data, because it's so important. But to transition, we spoke off air about, you got a birthday coming up, and you said you letting go some things and you bringing some things in. Talk about that transition and what's going on.
Yeah, I'm going on a trip to the 30 club, and there's some things that I want to take with me. Like I said, there's some things I want to take with, some things that I don't. Some things I got to leave behind. I got to leave in the 20s. You know what I mean? I mean, that's a loaded question because it's just so much. I think one of the things that I accepted in this transition, because I'm transitioning, so 29 now, going into 30, is that I did not get enough education or learning about my femininity. So that's something I definitely want to take into my 30s, and how important that is and what that looks like, how to express it, how to exude it, how to live it. So I want to be able to bring more of that into my 30s. I feel like my 20s was a little too masculine. I was a little too Fort Lauderdale. I'm from Florida, so I was a little to Broward for and I still have some of that with me. I ain't gonna let some of that go. That might be like a carry-on, you know what I'm saying? Maybe like a little pocketbook I take with me. But majority of my luggage, I want to fill it up with a lot of more feminine energy. That's definitely something that I want to look at. Definitely bringing God with me. That's every milestone for sure. But I want to be able to surrender more control in my 30s. That's what I mean by bringing God with me. It's just like I have the faith, I believe, I pray, I'm devoted, right? And as much as I can, I try to apply my readings into my real world. But what I have not been able to do is surrender control. So I want to know what that feels like in my 30s. How do I just really allow God to do his thing? And I know they say faith without work is dead. I'm not saying I'm going to just take over everything, but for me to be in a situation and when I say I'm gonna just let God handle it, that I actually do it. That I don't go back and peek, or I don't, like I don't just move, well, let me just move it right there, God. You know what I'm saying? Just a little bit won't hurt, or try to cause, you know what I mean? I want to be able to say, like, if he's handling it, then I have the confidence to know that I'm gonna be all right. And I think he's kind of showing me that with the whole therapy thing and how that just kind of fell on my lap. And there's been so many instances in my life that I should have recognized then that he got me. So I'm definitely gonna let go of some control in my 30s. I think I'm good. I think I'll be all right.
You said something when you were describing femininity, and I wanted to go back on that, and I'm wondering how that played. I think of an earlier podcast I had earlier this year where I interviewed a young lady, and she was talking about how some of the things that protected her as a woman away from people taking advantage of her came off later as, oh, why are you acting like a bitch, or why are you doing this, and why are you doing that? And she like, well, when I didn't do like that and I was vulnerable, people took advantage. Like that protected me at one space, but now it's starting to come. She had to realize she had to let that go because it started to affect relationships. So when you talk about like how, again, Broward, I know my man Yak from Broward, and I know how it get down, Ace Hood, like how it get down just from off of the music.
Yeah.
Just talk about like how that affected relationships, like when you said that you had to come into that.
Ooh, so the masculine, I actually didn't know what it was until I was more intentional about my work in therapy. So I didn't realize that I was carrying so much masculine energy until somebody pointed it out to me. I just thought that that's what you do. Like I was always like the home girl. I gave the home girl vibe, and I was just always the realist. You know what I'm saying? That was my brand. Like I was always trying to keep it 100. And
right.
I didn't really, and I mean, I still was a girl, and I still was a woman. I still was a lady for the most part. But ideally, like my mindset, I just was on the go. Like I thought that I could do, like if anything you could do, I could do better. Like I was always competing when it came to like males,
right.
so to speak. So I didn't feel like I was inferior. So I didn't feel like, so yes, definitely probably came off as a bitch, probably gave off arrogant vibes. Because that was a protective shield. So I lost my dad when I was 14, and I don't, how I was a daddy's girl. So being a daddy's girl, you always feel as though like if anybody were to try me, my daddy's I'm gonna just call my daddy.
Right.
I didn't have that layer of protection. So I felt as though like that masculine energy that I possessed was to let people know, like, yeah, I may be short, sweet, I may be cute, but don't cross that line or I will bite. Right? Don't cross that line or I will bite. What I learned in my adulthood is that I can still communicate the same thing, just do it, but just saying it differently. Where actually I realized that I have way more power in my feminine energy than I do in my masculine.
Ooh.
Yeah, I learned that. And I was like, it's the way that I say it. It's the way that I carry myself. It's the way that or what I'm trying to communicate, who I'm talking to, making sure that I utilize my woman intuition to guide me and let me know like this is the route you should take, that isn't the route you should take, etc., and trusting it. So all of that has to do with self. So it was never, it comes off as if like I'm doing this for other people. So I guess, so to speak, it's just like, okay, well, I'm being more feminine to try to get something out of it, whereas like it's really about being who I innately am and who God designed me to be. I'm like, it's very unnatural for us as women to be so masculine. And I know that we do that because as Black women, we try to protect ourselves. But that's the part of control that I kind of want to, that also kind of ties into it. It's just like, once I step into the space that I'm designed to be, a feminine woman, carry myself as such, communicate as such, operate as such, the things that are supposed to happen come to me. So for instance, there's this lady named April Mason. She's a YouTuber and she talks about feminine energy all the time. And she had this clip where she was talking, she was at this speaking engagement, and every woman that went on that stage, there were stairs. Every woman that went on that stage went up there by themselves. Mind you, it was a room full of men. There's men on the panel list right there, right in front of the stage. Every woman that went up there to talk went up there by themselves. When it was her turn to talk, she walked up to the gentleman, said, "Excuse me, sir, can you help me up the stairs, please?" And he's like, "Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, no problem."
Right.
Held her hand and helped her up the steps. When she was done, she didn't even have to ask. The gentleman was waiting for her at the stairs, brought her back down. Every woman after she spoke, the same gentleman helped him up, helped him down. Right. And it's one of those things where just like the masculine energy would have been like, "Oh, you should have known that. Like, why you ain't helped me up?" Right. Giving off that aggressive tone. But where she was able to use her powers is that she just asked a simple question, did it in a feminine way, and still got what it is that she wanted. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, why do I have to go up the stairs for myself when you have all these men here that can assist me? So when I mean like feminine energy is just like, I can still be assertive and be like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. As opposed to, "Oh, nah, nigga, you ain't about to
Right.
Right. So that's what I'm letting go. I'm letting go of that rah-rah and like tapping in more about like, how can I communicate this and still be my divine feminine self? Because that's what God designed us to be. Like, Eve came from the rib, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I'm not here to necessarily compete with men. I feel like I grew up under the impression that I had to compete with men, where I'm just like, I don't need to do that in my 30s.
No, and I'm trying to be politically correct without offending anybody while asking this question, because I think you're going to answer it perfectly. But I feel like with the rise of like the Me Too movement and people women taking their control of their narrative and things like that, it came a point where like women fighting for rights and things that they're trying to obtain so that they can be treated and looked at as on the same playing field. It also came to a downgrading, a degrading point of men at that point, if that makes sense, where like I heard to believe all women, like, you get what I mean? Like it kind of, the message got lost. So I think the question is that I want to ask is, how do you know as a man, mind you, I don't have this problem, but how do you know as a man when to help the woman up, or she's independent, she can do by herself? You get what I mean? Like, because you don't know at this point, like, all right, are we fighting or are we friends?
There's a lot of gray. It's a lot of gray. It can get real tricky. It can get real tricky. That's a good question. I mean, what I mean by tapping into more of the feminine energy is just like you would ask. It's so just like, either way, you won't put yourself in that situation, I guess, so to speak. You would just simply ask. So it's just like a part of that feminine energy too is just identifying and knowing, just like what spaces you're to be in. And it's just like, this isn't the case for all women. There are certain women who I'm certain would believe that that even if they are in certain spaces, that they're not supposed to be sexually abused or touched inappropriate, etc. Like, I'm not trying to say that that is to be the case.
Right.
I'm just saying it's just like we do have this innate intuition about self in regards to what we know feels right or doesn't feel right, where you can exit certain situations and put yourself out of get yourself out of situations, I guess, so to speak. And again, for a lot of women, that may not necessarily be the case, and it still doesn't make it right. It still doesn't make it okay. No matter where a woman is, she should feel safe and should feel secure. But in regards to a male, you're absolutely right. Consent is important. Ask it. But I think that males also have that level of understanding, or something tells them that, okay, this is okay.
Right.
So it's just like, I think if we're both engaging in our energy, in our divine selves, it'll kind of work out. So just like, if I'm a feminine woman and I see a masculine man and he is coming off to me and presenting to me in a way that I feel like I can engage with him, then I'm gonna do that. But where you have some people who don't even allow it to get to that point. Like a man was like, "Hey, how you doing?" You ain't even let it get to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, dang, sis, he just said hi. He just said hi. Like that's where just like, whereas you like in engagement, if you're kind of operating in your divine self, if you're giving off your divine feminine energy and divine masculine energy is there, it definitely will attract. And so not only will the female feel safe, but the male will also feel safe too. He was just like, hey, you're presenting yourself in a way that this is a consensual and safe space, and I can engage with you, and it's not going to be a problem.
No, you bodied that. That was good. That was a great explanation. Before we get to close out, I was supposed to ask this question earlier, but you done went in so many directions that was
fruitful. We went everywhere.
I told you we're gonna close it up good, but the last part is, why did you decide to make like Black men's mental health at a forefront of like where you wanted the niche inside the mental health field?
Thank you for asking that question. Now, some people that may listen to this may call me a pick-me, and I'm like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, I've accepted it. But I've been in the field long enough, I feel as though, to know and identify the countless amount of resources, platforms, information, just you name it, for Black women. And that's not to say that my Black women still don't need help, but we just have so many places that we can pull from to be able to get it. But then you go on the other side of the turf, you go on the other side of the railroad track, look a little scarce over there. You know what I mean? Like what's going on here? And I mean, I feel as though if I don't do it, who will? I think that's my attitude about it. And it's like, I don't necessarily want to be the front person. That's not what I want to do. I just want to be the vessel. Because I'm like, why not utilize all of the resources we have over here and just kind of bring some of that over there too? You know what I mean? And just let's kind of figure out like how we can help in this aspect as well. And it kind of is a little tense in that realm, because I feel like a lot of Black women, this is not to speak for all Black women, but you hear Black women talk about how they just feel like Black men just kind of just throw us away. So we just don't necessarily feel, we don't have that motivation to want to help out. So we just kind of just stick together and just do our own thing. Where I feel like if you guys thrive, so do we. So we need each other more than interdependence. We do, because there's nobody else on this earth that would ever be able to understand or your experiences than us. Nobody. I understand the Holocaust happened. I understand, the Japanese camp. I understand all those happens to different races, etc. But nobody would be, no one else would be able to understand you all than a Black woman.
And vice versa.
And vice versa. Nobody would be able to understand that experience. So it's just like, that is something that connects us, and that would never change. So as much as we fight and we go against the grain with each other, which, that's for another day.
Yes.
Which purposely designed for us to be against each other. At the end of the day, like, I'm just trying to go against the grain, where I'm like, why am I keeping all this information in one place for my sisters? I'm like, no, like, Black men need to know about this too. I mean, like, it's like the little stuff where it's like, oh, like, I know Black males are being more cognizant of it, but like self-care. We've been going to the nail salon for decades, getting our feet done. And like, you take a Black male go get his feet done, he was like, wait, this isn't so bad.
Yeah, it feel good.
Like,
right.
What is, like, yeah, give him a facial. He was like, oh,
right.
my face was so clean. Thank you. You go take him to the spa, go get some massage and like relax. What? I feel so much better. We've been doing this for years, taking care of ourselves. It's like, it's just the little things that if we just tell y'all about it, if you utilize it, you know, not necessarily try to emasculate you or anything, but if you utilize it, it's just as helpful for us. Like, these are the things that keeps us together. We got sister circles. We've been doing sister circles for years. Why don't got brother circles? Like, are we talking to each other? Like, are you guys lifting each other up? Are you hugging, saying I love you? Because that's what we're doing over here. This is how you get through it. You pick your sister up. You know what I'm saying? Are y'all picking each other up? So I'm like, hey, here's what's working for us. Let's see if it works for y'all. So I don't necessarily want to be the forefront, but I do want to be able to do it because it's not enough of us on that end. So I'm just like, why have all the Black therapists engaging with black women? They're gonna need Black therapists too, and just somehow find a way to make it cool enough for more Black men to want to do it. It's just like, I feel like it only takes one, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, okay, this sister believes in me. The other ones don't, but this sister believes in me. I'm gonna give it a shot. And if I can get one Black male to like commit to therapy and actually want to do it, I can only imagine what he could successfully do later on to help somebody else. So if I can get him through that threshold, then that means I was able to put a healthy Black man into the world to help other Black males be healthy.
Nah, that's a fact. And I even said that my next therapist is going to be an older Black woman. So that way it's like, come here, baby, just put your head on my bosom like
just
that.
Listen, I'm just trying to help you. We ain't got to do all of that. You know what I'm saying? Get you right and then get you on to the path that you need to get to so you can be the king that you are. Like, yeah. So it isn't, I'm still wavering because I don't want it to be what I'm not struggling with, but I don't want to come off unauthentic because I really, really do care. I don't want women to see me as, oh, she just a pick me and she just want, the attention. That's not what I'm trying to do at all. Like, in regards to my therapy business, I don't even like promote myself. Like, it's because I want people to be like, oh, she's a woman. Like, you know what I mean? And so, and then on the male side too, like, I want them to take me seriously. Like, I want them to be like, okay, this is not just I guess we're keeping an attraction thing. Right. Like, I really want you, like, so I have to be assertive and be a certain kind of way where I'm like making sure that I have those boundaries clear. And then on the other side too, like, for my sisters to still embrace me when I go on that side, so they don't think that I'm just all about men and I'm, I don't care about them. So I'm kind of tapering between both, but I always go where things are needed. I feel like my sisters, as much as we always need help, I can tell you how many countless of organizations and resources. I mean, something as small as I had a patient, single father. His wife died. You know what I mean? So he was in the hospital, had to get his kids. So kids are with mom, they're struggling. And then same situation, not exact same, but I had a homeless mother. But let's just say I had a homeless dad and a homeless mom in the hospital. I can make maybe one phone call. I can get the homeless mom in the shelter, no problem. Trying to get a homeless dad in the shelter. Not only do I have to find a shelter that can take a male, I gotta find one that can take a male with a kid. There's so many, they gotta be a certain age. They gotta do it. But I could call so many people like, hey, it's just a matter of finding availability. I can call shelters all day. Hey, I got a mom. She knows she needs somewhere to stay. Okay, cool. Fill out this form. No problem. We can get her tomorrow. Oh, we don't have any more room. Try next week. But trying to get resources for a male, not even just Black males in general, trying to get resources for a male, so much harder.
As we begin to close out, what any final thoughts that you have for the people? Because I feel like we could talk for hours.
I know.
And we had the fortunate pleasure of working together. And I feel like the last conversation we had went on for hours or whatever the case may be. But any final thoughts you want to leave the people with?
I just want to tell everybody that healing is for everybody. It's been like heavy on my heart. I've been saying that a lot. That healing is for everybody. That's all I say. Healing is for everybody.
Share this on that note. Please share this podcast so that way they can learn of the future work that's coming. I've seen some things that's coming down the pipeline that you sent over. So please share this episode so people can get familiar with this face and this person, because we will win that Nobel Prize. I'm gonna make sure we impact.
We're gonna have our own prize.
How about there that? We go. There we go. You are so
we're gonna
right
create
about
our own
that.
prize.
And please remember to subscribe and leave a review on Apple iTunes to keep having conversations like this, and we can keep promoting Black professionals who are doing the work in the field and having these type of impacts. And remember that this platform has never been about being a replacement to therapy. It's an alternative place where people share therapeutic stories. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.